So, I was able to find the complete storyboards for the new Death Note one-shot that's being released on the 4th of February. Today I'm going over the first 30 pages, so expect major spoilers. I'll continue going over the storyboards for the next few days until the full version of the manga is released. Make sure to subscribe and let's go. I'm not able to show any images, but I'll just explain what is going on. So the start of the manga starts off with Ryuk getting a Death Note from another Shinigami. This is based in the year 2013. He trades, or a Shinigami gets a random Death Note somehow, decides to give it to Ryuk for an apple, gives the apple to him and then takes it. Ryuk says apples are freaking delicious, and then he decides to go to the human world to find someone that will feed him more apples for a long time, like Light Yagami did so long ago. We cut to May 2019 with the new protagonist Tanaka, who's pretty much in bed on his phone just chilling, and then Ryuk goes across or comes near him and then pops him on the head with the Death Note, allowing him to see Ryuk. We get the reaction similar to Light he did in the original Death Note, where he kind of freaks out then starts to calm down again. We see here that it's been 2 years of Ryuk, meaning that the new protagonist Tanaka has seen Ryuk before. We go to another flashback that's 2 years before the current moment where Ryuk is. We go from a flashback to a flashback to a flashback. So 2 years ago from the first meeting of Ryuk, Tanaka Minoru placed first again. We learned that he's pretty much the smartest, or IQ-wise, middle school student in all of Japan, ranking first 3 years in a row. We see him here that he's complaining about his low score in English, or what he thinks is a low score, where he gets bumped on the head by the Death Note and sees Ryuk for the actual first time, where he freaks out a lot more. And then Ryuk says to him, "I heard you're smart," and then they have a conversation about that he's smart and that's the test and that he's got the best IQ. But then we learn about the views that Tanaka has, how he doesn't really see the IQ test as relevant to true intellect, and that he guesses he's kinda good at quizzes. Ryuk calls him dumb and says he's not dumb, he's just good at quizzes, or he guesses that he's good at quizzes. Actually, this might be the perfect fit for someone like you who's good at this type of stuff. Perfect fit, what are you saying? Ryuk mentions the Death Note to him, tells him that this is what Kira used. Everyone knows about Kira in this world. It's discussed that Kira's mentioned in the middle school ethic books, and that he's studied in history, and that there's many views about him being considered a god or evil, and that's what he learns about during history and ethics classes, is the history of Kira. Not Light himself, but the whole view of what Kira was and what happened during the world. We see a panel of the Death Note, how to use it, to whom his name written in death shall die, blah blah blah, regular stuff. Ryuk mentions that Kira was captured by the police, where that leads Tanaka to ask more questions about Kira. He says, "Ryuk, can you tell me more details about what Kira did?" "I want apples," Ryuk replies. "Well, I guess you're lucky my mum's on an apple diet and says you can get a lot of apples." "Are you serious?" "Kira's amazing, thinking of using the fact that people can see you when they touch the book, blah blah blah." More information about how smart this guy actually is, or revealing how smart he is slowly and slowly. While Ryuk mentions that he was similar to him, being one of the top scoring students in all of Japan studying wise. Tanaka mentioned that if he were to do the same thing or try to do the same thing, he'll be caught instantly, as during the 10 years that's developed since the time of the Kira, there's all this new technology. He mentioned security cameras on every bus, every train, every corner, and the improvements of technology as a whole, as it's based in current time, 2019, 2020, technology based. So he goes over all those issues. Ryuk mentions that if the original Kira was alive during this time, he'll be able to get around all this. The protagonist mentions, so there are two possibilities. Either I give the notebook to someone else, or I give it back to Ryuk. But if I give it back to Ryuk, I'll lose all my memories. But if I give the notebook back to Ryuk right now, that's all. So he'll give it to someone else and that's it. Tanaka goes into thinking mode, where he thinks about what he can do with the Death Note. Ryuk mentions that he's gone quiet for a moment. Tanaka mentions to Ryuk that he wants to ask him something. "Alright, go." "So there are any other people who are able to see you besides me?" "I'm afraid so." Ryuk mentions the people who touched the Death Note in the past time when Ryuk was with Light and all that. So the original Death Note story, pretty much, people who touched that. So Near, who touched it, the other officers who touched the Death Note, they're able to still see Ryuk. "Are you sure?" "I guess so. People who once owned the netbook would have ownership." Then my next question is, so it says here Shimigami has to stick with the person who currently owns the notebook. How far are you able to travel with me? They go over distance. Ryuk says he's not sure and doesn't really want to answer the question. Then Ryuk gives him a limit on how much distance, because Ryuk mentions he could probably view him from the Shinigami world. When they come up with a distance they can stay from each other, which is 14 kilometers from, or in world units, that's how far they can stay away from each other. Then the protagonist mentions, take the notebook back and come back in 2 years. In 2 years, I promise I'll actually use the notebook and feed the apples. What? You want me to endure my hunger for apples for 2 years, Ryuk says. Well, I don't mind if you give the notebook to someone else during the 2 years. Got it, I'll wait. And then Tanaka gives the notebook back to Ryuk, and there we go. That's the end of what I'm going to be talking about in this video, the first 30 pages. So in summary, this was pretty much a flashback, or most of the first 30 pages was a flashback to the present in the story, which is what we saw at the start, where 2 years has passed since the events that happened in these first 30 pages, and Ryuk is giving, or has touched him on the head with the notebook again. So pretty much the protagonist, or we learn in this that people who touched the Death Note in the previous story, or the original Death Note, are still able to see Ryuk as they touch the Death Note. So characters like Nia and the other police characters who touched the Death Note in the original series will be able to still see Ryuk. Tanaka asks 2 questions, how far he can travel from him, and the one I just mentioned. Tanaka seems to have a plan, that's why he wants him to give the notebook back to him in 2 years. The next pages, the next 30 pages that I go on tomorrow's video, will go over his plan and the start of the execution of that, what he's going to do with it. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for tomorrow's video on what's going to happen next. As a whole, first 30 pages was alright. The protagonist seems to be a lot different to Light, not more justice and god complex driven. He seems to have a different motive where he doesn't plan to really use the notebook to kill masses of people to cleanse the world of supposed evil. So the protagonist is a lot different and not just a copy of Light, which I really enjoy. Ryuk's greatness and apple addiction is still strong as always, so get hyped for that. We learn that the protagonist is smart, 3rd time in the year, smartest middle schooler in all of Japan, and pretty much, yep, pretty strong start. Not the greatest start in my opinion, but it's a pretty good introduction. I have read the whole thing and I do know what happens, and I can vouch that it's really good all the way through. This is just the storyboard, so it is possible that stuff can change by the official release on the 4th of Feb, so stuff can change, but most of the dialogue was here, just most of the drawings. Just, if you know what a storyboard is, or if you don't know what a storyboard is, it's just you put the dialogue on, you put rough sketches throughout, because the Death Note, people who make Death Note, there's one who does the story, so the person who does the main story does this, and there's someone who does all the art, so that guy will just rough sketch it and the guy will add in all the art, and they may change some dialogue up here and here or change some slight things, but pretty much the story will be mostly the same. And that's the start of the new Death Note one-shot. Hope you enjoyed the video guys, and that's it. Peace.